Hey Eric, are you presenting? We're not hearing anything.
Kind of. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, barely.
You got Yeah, I cut the sound out. I cut the output sound out. No, I need the output sound on. Oh. You have to enable them both at the same time. Oh. Sorry. All right. Test now. Can you guys hear me now?
Kinda.
How about now?
Yes, that's much better.
There. Is it better? All right, so we'll try this again. So for those who just saw a bunch of nothing and no our stuff with no audio, apparently my Google Hangouts like to die when I start presenting. But this is the Katello Sprint 38 demo. We'll be showing a variety of stuff in the areas of errata, Docker, performing tasks. And to start with, just a few notes about some documentation updates that we've worked on. As part of Katello 2.0, we've tried to make it a priority to write user guides and increase our documentation to make it easier for users to get on board with some of our concepts and entities. So we've added a capsule guide to walk users through how to deploy a capsule, requirements, and we've also ported over the Katello disconnected guide, as well as adding a small CLI guide for users to start getting on board with that. All right, that is all for myself. So next up is Walden to show the updates we've made in the area of errata.
Oh, sorry. Sorry for the pause.
All right, cool. Can y'all see my screen? You got that audio off over there?
Just 1 second, sorry.
You're good.
Go for it.
And it took a long time to mute. All right, I'm gonna go in reverse order from what the agenda says, and this is the content host page, and you'll notice the errata totals here that we've added that are broken up by type. Should look similar to the content view versions page. And then here's a new errata list page. And just list all the errata. Scroll. If you go to an individual errata, you'll see this details page that looks similar to what you'll see on the portal with all the stuff, including the affected packages down at the bottom there. We are going to be adding affected systems tab here soon as well, and you'll be able to apply errata from there. But that's pretty much it, unless there's any questions. And if not, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Justin.
You're muted.
Alrighty, I've got a few different sort of random things to show. First, as part of GA and even Katello community users, whenever they go to, let's see. On the recording. Okay. Whenever they go to enable a repository, if there's some sort of networking error or some sort of issue, they really don't get any feedback. They just see the list expand and nothing show up. So the goal of this, and this is actually a ZStream bug, was to bubble up the errors and provide a little bit more information to the user that something actually went wrong that they could then get help on from support. So here I'll change the CDN URL to something that doesn't actually make sense to simulate a networking error. And then if I try to enable a repository, for example, Red Hat Enterprise Linux Desktop, it'll attempt to connect to the CDN and should come back with an error. So we see name or service not known, which is infinitely more helpful than nothing. And there's actually a link to the failed task in Dyneflow, so the user could click on errors and have this type of information to send into support to try to debug the scenario. Also, if you actually make it past the listing of the repositories, so for example, if the CDN, if I can actually contact the CDN, but something goes wrong enabling the repository, for example, the CDN tells us that there potentially is a Red Hat Enterprise Linux Desktop Oracle Java RPMs for RHEL 5.7, but I can assure you there is not. So previously when we click this, I think it would just uncheck since an error occurred, but now we get an error saying that i386 and 5.7 are not valid for that repository. So at least gives some sort of indication of what went wrong that's more easily explainable. Sure.
So the issue, it's trying to connect to CDN because it's trying to substitute the URL. So
No, in this case, that repository doesn't actually exist. The CDN tells us it does, but it doesn't actually exist. So you could say that's a problem with the CDN, or it's a architectural problem with the CDN or something. But this is just showing that an error occurred and it's bubbling up to the user. All right, and the next thing, let's see, is errata for content hosts. Previously, we only showed the errata that were applicable in the current environment for that system. So, for example, in this case, in the current environment, there are only 2 errata that are available for installation. So this is exactly the same as previous. I could click those and apply. What this adds is the ability to see all errata for library. So, for example, now I see all 152 errata. Let me zoom out a little bit. So you can see there's a lot more errata that apply to this system. They just aren't available. And I'm not able to check these to apply them because, like I said, they're not available in the system's environment. I would need to perform some action, some sort of promotion to get the errata there. And in addition, I can also see the errata based on the previous environment. So if I were to promote the RHEL content view from library to dev, 2 additional errata would then be available. So it's sort of like a preview at a single host level. And again, I can't check those 2 because they're not actually in the environment. And then the next thing, let me switch to a terminal. All right, here, let me increase the font real quick. Okay. So previously, the Katello installer did not really do any proxy URL validation. And if you entered just like an FQDN or a host name, it would not work because some of the underlying systems required it to be a full URI, including either HTTP or HTTPS as the scheme. So as part of this sprint, we added a validation. So, for example, this is invalid, foo.redhat.com. If I enter that, it thinks for a second. And if you can read that, it says Katello proxy URL must be a full URI and only supports HTTP or HTTPS. So if I tried to enter in an FTP URI, which doesn't make any sense at all, it should give me the same error. But if I provide HTTP, it would continue. And that's about it. Are there any questions on any of those items? Alrighty, I will hand it over to David to talk about Docker-related stuff. Oh, Python.
Alright. So I guess they can hear me now. Let me see if I do screen share. And get my browser working. Oh, hold on. This is right. Okay. Just 1 second, guys. Okay. There's something messed up. Oh, okay, never mind. I needed brains for that. Okay, never mind. Okay, start screen share. Can you all see my? Oh yeah, I can see it here. Cool. All right. So, with respect to Docker, we are using right now we have ability to sync repos, create, update, and delete repo operations. I'm also going to show you how to enable, how to upload. We have like a demo manifest which has bad fake URLs because the production Docker registry is not working yet. I'm also going to show you how to enable those repos. Like so, I'll show you on Pulp admin either via Pulp admin or via the Pulp details, the repository details page. I'm going to show that the feed URL is actually pointing to wherever the registry is supposed to be at. Okay. So let me start. So in a typical Docker registry, if you see there's this URL, the feed URL, and then there's the upstream name. Okay. And the way we have written Brad, David, myself, we have it enabled right now. The upstream name serves as the repository name, and based on the argur, you'll be creating a unique ID, unique repository ID, but it'll be pointing to one of these upstreams. So let me show you how that's done. Create a new product. here I have to create a new repository. So let me I synced this yesterday, so I'll just try this again today. So the name upstream name value here. Copy and paste it, but this mouse is weird. Okay. Anyway,
Can you make it brighter a little bit?
bigger. Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, thank you. Is it better? No. Okay. Okay. And I'm pointing type to Docker, and there you go. And the URL will be repo, so it'll be. There you go. So you can save it. And should create a new Docker repo, which has not been synced. Yeah, obviously we just created it. So right now it is Docker image because we haven't synced it yet. So let me start syncing. Okay. And while actually I think it'll be we have the same ability to do the same thing from the CLI, so I can show you that, I guess. Actually, no, that will require switching the browser. So let's finish. Let's wait till this gets done. If I don't want to go through more complications. That happen. Okay. Should have taken a shorter repo, maybe smaller repo. This is good enough. While the sync is going on, let me go and show you my CLI, the CLI part, so we can come back to this. So I'm going to screen share again, and just 1 second. That's the CLI, right? Yeah, good. Yes, that's good. So big enough? A little bigger? Okay. Better?
I guess so.
You can make it bigger if you want.
Doesn't look like it actually got bigger.
Not it did, because here it got bigger. Okay.
Okay, that was good.
All right. So here I'll show you the CLI part. So let me see. So hammer organization list. So that should. So there's 2 orgs, and let me sync like a create and sync a Docker repo with this. I conveniently have a bunch of comments, copy pasted somewhere, so I'll just use that. So, oh, sorry, I didn't create a product. Okay. A product, never mind. I had a product called Docker there. So I'm going to create the Fedora SSH repository from the registry. And let me see. So I can say hammer the command. So it shows that there are 2 Docker repos. I guess I can just say have repository synchronize. So it's syncing here also, and there is a small bug here when yesterday I just noticed it yesterday. After syncing, it prints a number which is wrong, but says, yeah, when it's done. It says like 26 images synced or something. Well, it's only 12, so that I don't know where it got the 26 from, which I'm going to work on. Yeah. So synchronization works. Let me go back to the URL to the browser now, and we'll come back to this later. So hopefully change it again. There you go. It's really slow. Okay, I'm not sure why it's taking forever. I guess the Wi-Fi is pretty slow here. Maybe when I tested it in my workstation where it was faster. Okay, let me show you the other stuff. So you can assume that the sync works. Let me go and show you the manifest upload and enablement. Meanwhile, so you can. So I have like a dummy manifest here that with the Docker stuff in it, and mouse working. Okay. This will be faster. A good test actually. 3 things. Same single instance of my dev server. Okay. There you go. At least that worked well. Now, see, shows it's a little too big here, but you can see that it uploaded a lot of stuff, and one of them will be a Docker image there. It's easier to see in the Red Hat repositories page because it's categorized better there. Classify it. There you go. So there's no RPMs in this, but there are Docker images, so you should see those there. And you can enable this. Now, okay, once it's enabled, let me go to the CLI back again. I'll just show you the pulp admin output. Oh wait, no, I can show you the UI itself. Okay. So let me go to products again. Let's this one. Why is it small there? Did it become small? Yeah, actually, it's a little slow right now. All right, so you see the repositories that is supposed to talk to the CDN, and notice the URL there points to registry access redhat.com, and this is a fake manifest, so you have like paths to awesome whatever, but basically that's the URL that points to the registry. And hopefully when the registry gets functional, we can see we can see this working. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Need buddy questions? Let me see if the other stuff got synced.
Hey, Parker, I have a comment / question.
There. Any questions?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Guess not. So.
Og, did you have a question?
I do. You guys hear me?
Should I do it via audio process? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so basically, I know that when you use the web UI to create a new repository, we don't really do any validation for the name.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. All right. Ask the question now. I think we can hear you now. Sorry, I had you on mute.
Oh, okay, so you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so the web UI allows you to enter any kind of characters for the repository name. But we know that Docker images require that the names all have to be lowercase. I think you only accept alphanumeric characters and underscores, right, for the name itself. So are we planning to add any kind of validation for Docker repositories? Because otherwise, as a user, if I don't see something that's very obvious to me that the name has to match these rules, chances are that I'm going to type whatever I want, and that I will only see issues when I try to synchronize later down, right, down the line. So are we planning to do anything to improve the usability from that angle?
That's a good point, Augie. So yeah, let's create an issue for it. I think we should address that because the one special character we still had all those slash. I think other than that, we can work on. We have to add the logic to say if it's Docker, then make sure it's this. So yeah, file a bug on that. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll do. Thank you.
Okay. Is that the only question or anything else? Not I can. I'm gonna share.
Okay, hopefully folks can hear me okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so what I was going to go over, and can folks see my desktop? Yes, you can. Okay. What I was going to share is some additional details around the Docker work that was done in the sprint. So Partha kind of showed you how to create that content in Katello. What I'm going to show you is that that's now exposed via the installer and that clients can basically pull that content down. So what I want to show first is, let's go ahead and take a look at the installer side of it. So there's just two small pieces that had to be added in order to support Docker. From a pulp point of view, it included the pulp Docker component. And yet, in addition to that, they also have the pulp crane, which is a web app that gives a client-side interface to Docker pulls. So the installer has been updated to pull in a couple of extra RPMs, which will expose that capability. But in addition to that, the installer has also been updated to create the configurations to support it. The first part is just a very small config file for crane. It just says, whether or not you want to debug on, how often Crane is going to pull for updates to content that's been published.
Can you talk about Crane for a second, like where it's going to be used?
Sure. Let me just finish this real quick. And then the other is the endpoint and location where that content is. So what Crane is, as I mentioned, it's a web application that gives the clients a REST API to perform Docker pull. That's basically the only API that it's providing today. It doesn't provide like a search or a find or say all of the Docker APIs today. So what we're really is just exposing Docker pull via Crane. Crane will be installed as part of the capsule or Smart Proxy, as well as part of the Katello server. I've not tested it yet on the capsule, so I can't say with 100% certainty that that's there, but I'll do that after the demo just to confirm. So anyways, from a configuration point of view, you have the crane.conf file that needed to get created by the installer, and all of the content is basically defaulted. And then you also have a couple of Apache configurations that have to get created. One is for Crane, so that you're defining what the Apache configuration will be for those Docker pulls. We are configuring it for SSL so that it is protected access. And this is using a new Puppet module called Puppet-Crane.
So we can modify that if we need to. And the last component of the configuration that had to be added is the actual module for Docker. It's very slim, it's very small, just like the other pulp configurations. So essentially, it did. It's not now. I'll not update to my screen.
Reshare.
Sure.
Sometimes I have been about Firefox.
Can folks hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, let me reshare again. Yeah, it's not allowing me to share. Or is... Click me at the bottom.
I see it.
Okay, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so I have content. Now we're looking at my browser. I've created a Docker Images product. I've created a few repositories for BusyBox, Fedora, and the registry. Sync those in. We can see that each one of them has Docker images. What we want to do now is actually go down to a client to pull in one of those repositories so we can see that this content is consumable. What I want to note is one thing that remains is we have an outstanding issue of a change that you'll need to make on the client itself in order to be able to pull this content, and that is due to the fact that we do have Crane set up for SSL. You need to make sure that the CA has actually been added to the CA bundle. So if you follow these procedures in this issue 7925, you can set your client up until we get those code changes in place. That's already been done on my client. So let me go ahead and jump down to the client. If we take a look at it, this client has Docker installed, it has the Docker service running, and it has the CA for Katello in the CA bundle. So what we'll look at is Docker images to see if we have any, and we see that we do not. We'll jump over and actually pull in one of the images. What we're going to do is actually pull in Fedora. So this is going to download each of the Fedora images that's in that repository. This is going to take about 40 seconds, so it's still a little slow, but not as slow as actually restarting my Hangout. And what we'll see once this finishes is it will pull in Fedora for Fedora 20, 21, Rawhide, and also have a tag for latest, which points to 21. So we'll go ahead and let this finish up. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, it's taking a little longer. Apologize. Each of these images is roughly 300 megabytes. So okay, it's now completed. If we run Docker images now, we should see that we have several images that have gotten pulled down. with tags. You can see, like, say, latest has the same image ID as Heisenberg, which has the same image as Fedora 20. That's because that's how Docker works, is it has these tags pointing to the actual images. What I want to take a look at is, now that we have these images down on the client, let's actually use one just to see can I do anything with it. So if I run Docker ps-a, this is going to show me any containers that have that are basically on the system that aren't currently running, or actually are running, as well as those that are not. So we can see there are none. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to run a couple of these images and actually look at output and see that it did get a container created. So if I take a look first to see Red Hat release. So right now we're in a virtual machine, the RHEL 7 virtual machine. I just want to do this so you see that the command that gets executed is done in the context within the actual container and not the VM itself. So let me go ahead and copy one here. Okay, so what we did here is we did a Docker run of the Fedora 20 image, and we basically said cat out my Red Hat release, and we can see it came out as Heisenberg. If I do the same thing for 21, I should see it say 21. If I were to say latest, and it should pick whatever was latest, which was Fedora 20. So basically what we're doing here is we're instantiating containers and just running cat Red Hat release. So we can now see if we run Docker PS that there are several containers that got created, but they've already executed. So the main thing I want to show here is that what we've done is we've actually pulled content down from Katello, and then we've created some just very basic containers using that content. Let me note one more thing. So one thing you'll notice here is the default organization Docker images Fedora 20. What that represents is the organization, the repository, and then the actual Docker repo. I'm sorry, the product, and then the Docker repository, and then which tag we're using. One of the things that we want to look at is Pulp has the ability to provide kind of a mapping to give a more user-friendly name, but we need to take a look at how we can do that and still maintain the concept of organizations and content views and products, etc. So for right now, it is very verbose, but we'd like to see if we can narrow that down. Question, Partha?
Yeah. I saw you do a Docker pull. Is there a way to figure out what images are available for this client?
That's what I was saying. Without a Docker search, no. So today, Pulp doesn't give you search.
Right.
So you can't see it from here.
Crane doesn't have it.
No. But what has been stated from the Pulp team is that there is a way to install a search capability, and we may want to look at doing that. It's not part of Pulp.
Okay.
And I could, if I ran Docker search by default, it's actually going to look at Docker Hub.
So how did you? So you got the repo name for Pulp admin basically. You just said. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, these are the Pulp IDs. Pulp's default behavior is if you don't specify an ID, it uses the Pulp ID. So in this case, it's organization, content view, product, repository, just like any other Pulp ID.
I wonder if you could build it in the CLI.
So, any other questions?
Hey, Brad, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So if you configure your Katello to go through a proxy, will Crane also follow suit and use the proxy?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, basically the Crane was set up very similar to all of the other content, so it also supports the proxy config.
Which part of Crane uses the proxy?
Actually, it would have been I'm sorry, it was Pulp that would use the proxy.
Yeah. Syncing Docker uses the proxy,
Yeah.
regardless of what's actually doing.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, let me go ahead and unshare, and I'll give it over to David.
Can you guys see my browser?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so one thing I worked on this past sprint that I can actually demo is a small bug relating to descriptions on content view versions. Before, when you went to go publish a new content view version, you saw this description field, but it actually didn't do anything. You would enter in something and it would be lost. But now it is actually saving, so I'm just going to show that. Let me go back. Okay, so content views. Okay, go back to my content view. Go and publish a new version. Enter in a description. Save. And right now, you can't actually view the description in the UI. There's a pull request open right now to actually create a version details page so that we can actually show it because it wouldn't fit here. So there is a PR for that, and it does have a description field. But I will show you from the CLI. Here's the publish command. And as you can see, it has a description option now. It didn't before, but now it does. And if I do info on my new content view version, you can see the description field here with the description that I entered. And so it is being saved now, and you can see it in the CLI. And once the OpenPR that Eric has for the version details page is merged, you'll be able to see it in the UI as well. And also there's an RFE, I think, to add descriptions to promotes as well. And I've looked into that a little bit, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Were there any questions? If not, I will turn it over. Thanks, guys.
Okay, let's see. So you should hear me now, and eventually see my desktop. Okay. So what I was working on last sprint was basically continuing on the steps for getting foreman tasks and Dynflow into the foreman core, as more and more services and features would use or want to use this feature, so it makes sense to get into the core. And step number one, that is probably the biggest one that we needed to figure out, is the support the multiple executors for the Dynflow. So for now we have a limitation that only one executor is basically allowed to do the job, which doesn't fit well to HA setups and multi-host setups that the foreman users have quite often, and we will see more of them as well as with Katello. So we were discussing what the first word communication to use to basically talk between the executors and the clients, and for pragmatic reasons, it turned out that using the database for exchanging the messages might be the best one, at least for the beginning, because we have a shared database anyway, so using some kind of messaging technology is not that useful here, and we will avoid the setup issues that always messaging brings. We also did the architecture in a way that there is a possibility to add different adapters so that it's not tied to the database, but the database is the preferred one or the only one for multi-host setup. We also support in-memory, where it doesn't use any database or anything. It just goes from one thread to another. So I will demo first this running on SQLite. Sorry. So I will first. This is I don't run right now Foreman or Katello. It's just an example in the Dynflow directory. So I first run the observer, which runs just a console. And if I go to the console, I will also show you the new experimental Dynflow Angular console that we have here. So there is now the register of worlds, which world is basically represents the Dynflow instance. It might be at least either client or an executor. So in this case, it's just the client, so it has executor to false, and it's the observer. So it just runs the console, nothing else. Now I will run the server, and I will use the default SQLite. So when I refresh again, I probably run the observer for the Postgres, so it's not on the same database. So again, so this is the executor that I've run on this pane, and this is the observer. So I have these clients, two clients here. Now I will run a client that will periodically send some work, so create some execution plans and want to execute that, waiting for the result and then executing another one. So when I run that, we start seeing, it plans some action and the executor is running that. So we have also some example of some task that got stuck, so it's in suspended state. We will use that later. So now I will run a second server, and what happens is that the round robin algorithm on the client starts sending or spreading the work between these two executors. So now this work, this 9.3 at the end got executed here, and 67 was executed here. Now, so a part of it is also better recovery and also better handling of killing or exiting an executor. So I have here some execution plan that got in the stack phase. You can see in the console that there's a bit different structure here. We don't show the plan, run, and execute tabs, and instead there are the actions structured based on the way that were planned, and you can see which actions had the plan, run, or finalize phase. This blinking around means that this is actually running or in a suspended state, and it will get updated periodically. So at the bottom of this page, I will make it slower or smaller so that you could see it also on the recording. There's the execution history, which says which world started executing this execution plan, and what I will do now is kill the executor that is running this thing. So what should happen is the second executor should pick up this execution plan and start working on that as nothing happened. So you can basically restart, or in HA setup, if you run more than one executor, you can kill or stop one, and the the task would continue working. So in the execution history, you see that I've terminated the execution on the world of this ID, and the second world started the execution. There are still some rough edges here, and we need to do more things in basically figuring out if some executor was killed. This is just one case. There are other corner cases as well, but you probably got the idea. So this is for the SQLite, and we also wanted to make it a bit faster because we previously were using the Unix sockets, and the communication was quite fast, while with this database version, the default one is polling the tables for the new messages every second by default, which is kind of slower, so you should be able to see that. So let me just run it first on the SQLite. So I will again run the server here, and here the client, and so it's kind of every 2 seconds something gets executed. There is some sleep on the client side, but the main time is just waiting for the polling intervals to begin. We used quite a nice feature of the Postgres. So if you run these on the Postgres database, we can use the listen notify feature that was introduced in Postgres 8. So I'll run server here and run client. So exactly the same example, just on the different database. And when I run this, you can see the difference. So comparing this one and this one. So basically the communication, I have some, so the client says I have something to execute, and the server gets notified right away, and the round robin works same. So when I run more servers on the Postgres, it will just start distribute the work. And if I kill the executor, it will continue sending it on just the one that left. So we also migrated, or in the middle of migration, to the concurrent Ruby gem, so that the actor implementation that we have in the Dynflow is now shared in the separate gem, and it got more attention there. So thanks, Peter, for doing this job. And that's probably all I wanted to show you today. Any questions?
Would it make sense for Satellite or Katello to run more than one executor on a single box, or is this primarily for high availability?
On a single box, it should not be that difference. Although there is the global interpreter lock on Ruby side, so we can't use the true parallel execution. We most of the time just waiting for the I/O operation, which can happen in parallel. So there might be some case that we basically run some thread pool, which is right now quite big. So even if we got a lot of work, it should not be the executor should not be halted, but loaded too much. But basically, it might be a case that you want to run executor just to increase the power, but with switching to the concurrent Ruby, this is probably not the case. So we are running the thread pool inside one executor anyway. So this is basically for the HA setups.
So even if we had more, I guess, CPU bound tasks, it still wouldn't make sense to run more than one.
So I don't think that we would see the difference in the performance of the satellite or Katello in this.
So by the HA setup, you mean multiple forks or something, right? Like
multiple systems, so in case one goes down, the other can still be running.
Yeah. So informally, it's quite common if you have 10,000 of nodes that you need to run multiple servers, one a few for the Puppet Master, ENC, and a few for other things. So this is basically must-have to be able to get to the core. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I will stop sharing. And
Can you hear me, David?
Yes.
All right. So, unless there are questions for anyone here at the end for anything they have seen so far, I do not see any questions on the Q&A app. Then we will conclude the Katello Sprint 38 demo. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for all the presenters for sharing. That's it. See you.